It shouldn't take forever to fix Nigeria and Africa, and it is just the it is just the annoying thing about history and about life that it's not like a movie where you see Chuck Norris start something now and then ends it immediately in like 2 hours, or you watch The Equalizer and you see Denzel Washington gets to do all the displays he gets to do in and about that short period of time, and everything tends to now come out to work so well. Equalizer one, Equalizer two, Equalizer three, or Roman J. Israel Esquire, and then you get to see how he moves, and then he accuses himself, and then tries to forgive himself for doing all the things he gets to do, and the likes of that. There's too much on our plates as Nigerians and Africans than we can comprehend and even come to fully realize as it concerns our situations and the events that have led us here, and how we are supposed to get out or through the paths before us. And we are not looking at the core of the issue, that what has brought us down here, or the things that brought us down here, are indeed things beyond our grasp as a people, things that were done before we came, things that were done by our ancestors or done to our ancestors against our wish, against our desires, against their wishes, and sometimes even to their own wish and to their own desires, and did they know the full implication of what will come out in the future? I guess not. Did they believe or get to know that there will come a time whereby their own sons and daughters will want to travel abroad just to find greener pastures as opposed to staying within the geographical location that is currently Nigeria? I guess not. But is that the situation on ground now? Yes, it is. And are we making full recognition and consciousness to understand the differences down here? It's a thin eye doubt. It's a thin eye doubt. Europe is not innocent on this particular front. Neither is China, neither is the US, the so called West, and the likes of the conglomerations that come to make up that entity now called the West. And I hate geopolitics for the names it tends to give itself. There's the global south. I don't even understand what that is. There's the Indian left. And how then there's the other contraption called the Middle East, and but then it can also be called the Far West. But in and about that are the different stuff we get to have. But Peru and Lima and the much of Latin America is not to be considered the Western world. But then a place as far as Australia is to be clammed in and put into that particular juxtaposition down there. I still don't understand it, but it is what it is. So these guys are smart, and they're damn intelligent as it concerns how to continue to leak us dry and empty. They seem to have perfected their game and the reality of our relationships and deals with them. I will keep on saying this over and over again, that the few ambassadors I've met in my life, on one, or in meetings or in rooms, are people who, for whatever reason, within the African continent, are those who have studied African studies, or what you call Africana studies, and they know a lot about Africa. They know a whole lot about the region where they will be sent to in the future. And also, in recent times, also while researching in Europe, you find young people who want to be diplomats. You find young people who want to be to work as people in the diplomatic field, who want to work as ambassadors or representative of their countries abroad. They start by studying cultural studies, and then from cultural studies they do Indology, and then from there they do stuff on Oriental studies. From there they do Africana studies, and some of them go on to do Bengali. They study Bengali, they study different languages, Swahili, and all of those type of stuff at a very, very young age, preparing themselves to become qualified diplomat. But as it concerns our own situation, I struggle to understand how our ambassadors are picked. Recently you've come to have a situation where people are talking about Reno Mokri becoming an ambassador and the likes of that. But what qualifies Reno Omokri to act as an ambassador as he concerns, first representing Nigeria in the real sense? He's full of so many falsehood. He's full of so much baggage as a person, so pretentious a person, and you don't want to send somebody like that as an ambassador except yourself and your administration is an administration who are both crooks, and everybody down there has a chameleon character and the likes of that, because Reno Omokri has moved 360 on multiple occasions, and it shouldn't be someone you want to do any serious business with. But we find people like that. Meanwhile, these guys, the West and all that is the African Union, the EU, no, not the African Union, the EU, they send the best of their guys to study the location, to study the geography. Their team know what to look for when they go to a region. But do our own guys actually really know what they are doing in this region is something also we ought to look at. We're the ones left behind down here with stupid treaties and foolish pacts, as well as devilish relationships that leave us and our future uncertain and confused, as well as messed up. And even when we come to realize how fucked up our cases are, our leaders do nothing than join their camps to oppress us and to even oppress how oppressed we are already. Our intellectuals aren't helping matters. Intellectuals aren't helping matters. When I was young, I used to think the accusation leveled against intellectuals are accusations that are not done in all fairness and all that. I was thinking intellectuals tried their best on many fronts, but coming to run a podcast and trying to reach out to intellectuals to talk to has revealed a whole lot also for me to get to look at, and conversations about situations like for instance, who funded your trip abroad, who funded your research when you were a young child. All of those stuff tend to affect how intellectuals tend to respond to things. And come to think about it, who are the ones who get to draft the party manifestos, and who are the ones who get to write speeches for presidents and for governors and for ministers and for parliaments? Who are the ones who get to draft the bills these men tend to pass out? There are intellectuals, except you have a different and a vague idea of what an intellectual ought to be and the likes of that. But our so-called intellectuals do this. Who are those who write history? Who are those who write the books and the newspapers? Who are those who report for us to look at? Who are those who give us and shape our history going forward? They are the intellectuals, because in 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, you will not remember what happened in Nigeria, say for what the newspaper would say for what the archive would say for what bills would say for what the parliament will get to say in their reports and all that. And all of these are shaped by so-called intellectuals, as well as even the books that will be written on history, the books that will not be written, and why intellectuals are not even writing in that particular regard, as opposed to them giving themselves in their openness and all that. It's still a problem down the intellectuals are not at the moment looking at. We ourselves are to blame too for how complacent we are and have been, and how we most likely will be going forward. We as a people need to look at our lives also. What are we doing, you and I? How are we helping this situation? Are we participating in it? Are we quiet? Are we complacent? Do we think because our brother is in office, we don't have any right to criticize the government and all of those type of stuff? These questions are things we are not ready to face and ask ourselves. And I think it's something we ought to be asking ourselves. It's enough to want a Messiah, but how much are you willing to support that Messiah? Even to watch a video that can inspire your children and inspire your consciousness, you try to shut down yourself. When was the last time you went out to buy a book? Because we might complain that Nigeria is hard, but Nigeria is not so hard when you can spend 150,000 naira a week at a Cubana restaurant or a Cubana club. Meanwhile, 150,000 naira can buy you at least 10 books if they are sold at 15,000 naira in 1 year. Books are expensive in Nigeria, but you spend so much money doing other things. And I'm not saying you shouldn't take care of yourself. I'm not saying you shouldn't eat. I'm not saying you shouldn't la vida. I'm not saying you shouldn't spend money on yourself and the likes of that. But I'm saying, imagine for a moment that you can take out 10,000 naira against all odds in your life to want to buy a book. We're not even talking about the pirated books, because we cannot also lay claims that we don't have pirated books in Nigeria. There are lots of pirated books. Do you even make out time to want to read that? I'm not endorsing piracy and the likes of that, but we know it exists at the moment in Nigeria. Do you even read that? What about the free news on the internet? What do you spend your time doing? What do you tell your children about? How do you navigate the situation? Your room, your house, is there a library? Are there newspapers for your children to come to consume? Are there books? I talk about books because books are like the direct medium. If we are even going away from books to other forms of media, do they read the news? Do they watch historical channels on YouTube to get to see what they can learn about their country? Or they are just doomed to continually blame the West and blame the government, and we have nothing to tell ourselves about our roles in what we play going forward? Because we seem to know our problems, or maybe I am holding us in high esteem. Maybe I'm just holding Nigerians in too much esteem, like maybe this bunch of intelligent people and the likes of that. Maybe we're not that intelligent nonetheless. Maybe the 5 laws of stupidity also applies to us. And you know what it said about stupid people and all the stand down there to do the harm they tend to cause to themselves and the harm they tend to cause to their community, and how the level at which somebody can get stupid is done irrespective of what one is as a person or what one has achieved as a person, and how we underestimate the number of stupid people in circulation at every given point in time, and how intellectuals and intelligent people also underestimate the level of stupid people around them, and the most evil and the most vile of people to be around with are people who are stupid, and we are not in any short form of stupid people. But one thing is sure, ours is a terrible situation that has gone on for too long, and how we seem to be all fine and good for the level of education, awareness, and consciousness we have refused to possess as a people in order to turn around our situation for the better, is a thing that still leaves me in so much shock and surprise as to how our lives have been down here as a people. And it is what it is. In the final analysis, it boils down to the fact that we lack power and the will necessary to change things. And we don't want to change it. We don't want to change it. We think we're all fine. And sometimes maybe someone can be harsh on our people, but I think it's necessary if that is what it needs to get us out there. We don't lack the knowledge of our problems. I think we lack the consciousness of how to stop accepting the problems and start demanding more. We shouldn't accept things the way they are. We're not living the best of lives we've never done. We can get better. We can do better. And it is my duty down here to remind us every now and then that we just have to look across what life was in Europe 40 years ago, even under the Soviet occupation, and see how their lives were, from structures and infrastructures and all that, and how they led their lives in peace, seeming peace, compared to us. They weren't comfortable with their situation. They formed solidarity, they formed different movements, they formed different protests, both violent and non-violent, and here they are today. We shouldn't wish our hope to come to pass without we wanting to take part in the situations that will see to it that our situation as a people come out well and come out better. That is all I'm just saying, and I hope and I wish and I pray that we as a people come to actually know what we ought to do now going forward, because there's nobody that is coming to save us. It is you and I, your children, my children. It is your children, the children of my sisters and my uncles and my aunties, that would one day come to fix the situation in the country. We shouldn't think the white man would just come and do it for us. The mythological white man, the allegorical white man. Rather, they are having a big time and a crisis in their countries. They will come and they will continue to milk. They will continue to milk, as we've pointed out down here. Europe is not innocent. Neither is the so-called West. We've talked about that. We've also looked at the idea that they know the game so well. They know the game. They do international relations. They do African studies, they do Indian studies, they do Oriental studies. They know everything down the Middle East, from the works of Munif to the works down in Asia to the works in some parts of Russia. In fact, in all parts of Russia, they are involved in studies other than their own. They are curious about what happens in Zanzibar, what happens in Tanzania, what happens in Morocco, what happens in Turkey, what happens in China. Are you as curious as the West? Are you as curious? Are you as hungry for data and for information as they are? And what are we doing to the fact that up until now, we as a country don't have ambassadors? Because Nigeria, for the longest period of time since this contraption of a government came to power, have not had ambassadors. And you want the international world to take you serious. You don't have ambassadors anywhere. You've recalled all your ambassadors the moment you came into office, and you for whatever reason want to be represented. What a pity, what a shame. I don't know what will be said of this government when their tenure gets to end, and now 2026 has been even forgotten. Everybody is not thinking about 2027. And that is a shame. That is a shame. A government that starts campaigning 2-3 months after resuming office, after a very, very, very difficult and unpopular assumption to office. It's a government I want to wait and see what happens. But 2026 is a very important year in Nigeria. But we're not even talking about it. We are so focused on 2027 that nobody has said anything about even 2025. Nobody's saying anything about 2026. Everybody's just so focused on 2027. And funny enough, it will come and it will go, and we will not be so educated to make the right choices, and we'll start complaining again, and we'll start praying to God to answer questions and give us answers to things we can do for ourselves. It's so sad to be somebody who has to sit down and think about these situations. But what do I do? It's the job of philosophers and writers to call people like your fathers and my father, my mother, and my father is dead, my mother and my siblings, all to the consciousness of the fact that we've accepted too many stupid things. And remember how we started. It shouldn't take forever to fix Nigeria and Africa. I say this because I know what Poland went through in the 70s and the 80s, and how they quickly came out and how they aligned themselves in the geopolitical world to gain the level of relevance they have for themselves now. I know what Turkey was like under the Ottoman Empire and what it also is at the moment with their current president, or whatever you want to call him at the moment. And I know how Romania has changed in a very, very short period of time. I know how Georgia has changed. I know how all the daughters of Stalin have changed in a very short period of time. And we don't need forever to change Nigeria. We don't need forever to change Africa. That is my message for you today. That is my message. And I hope we come to see reasons with me that we don't need all this time to do this. I'm Biringkpa in America. I'm your brother. This is Boring Conversations. See you next time.